Attack on Titan is a series that heavily focuses on the concept of tribalism. People have a tendency to see those who are not part of their tribe, family, community, or nation as monsters. This is one of the fundamental factors that fuel the cycle of hatred. And interestingly, the series conducts a global experiment on tribalism through its own fanbase. This is precisely where the Yeagerist fascist segment of the fandom comes into play. Eren killing hundreds of millions of people in one of the most excruciating ways possible is something that would normally be absolutely indefensible. The series is a clear critique of Eren's selfish, ruthless, brutal and blind nature, as well as the falseness of the hero archetype that Eren embodies. And yet, you can practically see half of the fandom chanting Tatakae in the streets, pressing how cool Eren is. These people form a blind and sheep-like group that is capable of calling the mass slaughter of hundreds of millions of men, women and children justice for the freedom of 1 million people plus Eren. If they were born 80 or 90 years ago, they would have raised their hands for Hitler. Or if they were born on Marley as a Marleyan, they would be happy to see that island devils get eaten. Today, they chant Tatakae, they are sheep. They talk about the suffering of Eren and Paradise, about how hundreds of thousands of innocent people in Paradise were unjustly and painfully killed. They question why these innocent people are paying the prices of the crimes of aliens who lived 100 years ago. They saw this is terrible, then they turn around and see the crimes committed by the Marleyan government as justification for not just hundreds of thousands, but hundreds of millions of innocent people being killed. They even go as far as to say, most people around the world hated the aliens, so they deserved the rumbling. Let's say for a moment that everyone who hated the aliens truly deserved to die, by crushing under the titans or just burned to death. The number of people outside the island who have never shown hatred toward an alien in their entire lives far exceeds the population of Paradise. Even if we accept your -12 IQ logic, when rumbling happens, still far more innocent people die. The fact that rumbling being bad even needs to be explained to you shows that humanity is not heading in a good direction. It is necessary to point out that this is exactly the peak of the cycle of hatred the series criticizes. This is somehow really necessary to say. All those things are not a problem about a series named Attack on Titan. What Attack on Titan shows through its own fanbase worldwide is a rather depressing decay of people. All those show us how much Attack on Titan was right about the problems it examines. I will get to the "they deserved it" part later. Throughout history, there have always been countless followers willing to defend charismatic leaders, no matter what those leaders do or say. They are always there to defend them. The Yeagerist fascist fandom suffers from the sympathy bias. They only value the lives of characters they have watched through 3 seasons. The characters they had the opportunity to develop sympathy for. Only their lives and freedoms and feelings are important. Yeagerist fascist fandom's mental horizon goes no further than that. The rest of the world is shrouded in mist, unknown, hidden behind the walls. This is in essence the nature of life, refusing to care about anyone behind oneself or one's lineage. To demonstrate the sympathy bias toward those who are familiar and one of us, Attack on Titan begins its 4th season from Marley's perspective. The audience is encouraged to see that the Marleyans too are human, that they are not monsters, at least most of them. The issue here is lack of empathy, being selfish, excusing the guilty, sympathizing more with the perpetrator than the victims, feeling sorrow for the fact that Eren and Mikasa couldn't be together after 80% of world was annihilated. The problem lies in empathy, sympathy, tribalism, worship of charisma, worship of one's freedom, and the failure to worship goodness. 80% of the world has been burned or crushed to death. Hundreds of millions of people spent their final days knowing that tens of thousands of 15-meter titans were approaching to destroy them. Yet, the Yeagerist fascist fandom laments the fact that Eren's charisma was tarnished in the final episode. In fact, even before the rumbling took place, it was clear that the fascist in these people would emerge in the following episodes. When the Liberio attack took place and countless civilians died there too, you expect after watching all those people die, following thoughts would appear in mind. Was there another way? Couldn't a way have been found that would have resulted in less civilian casualties? The characters we love killed so many civilians. Why didn't Eren seem to be the last bit sad while taking so many lives? What a brutal and sad episodes are those. But instead of thinking this, Yeagerist fascist fandom is extremely annoyed by the hateful, angry and fighting back attitude of a child whose friends have just been killed by Eren in front of her eyes. Countless people from her people have just been killed by Eren and the survey corps, and who is caught in the middle of a war where titans are trying to kill each other. Yeagerist fascist fandom's problem is this girl. Nothing any other than that. Nothing. The problem we need to talk about in all this chaos and blood is this girl. The problem is her in all this. Hey, look how cool Eren is, and then look Gabi. Gabi is just a child who screams at people. She is not cool at all. You begin to think that long ago, people who worshipped power for thousands of years and some primates had a child one night when they got very drunk. And this is the result today. The Yeagerist fascist sheep-like fandom thinks that being cool, having abs, wearing a jacket stylishly and staring into the mirror with angry eyes means being good and just. At this point, it becomes clear that these are individuals whose minds are stuck in the early stages of adolescence, or they are already adolescents. They have managed to burn out their shallow brains by listening to a few cool lines, by idolizing the Sigma alpha male archetype they think they embody, and by watching Fight Club 10 times. If Attack on Titan were real, they imagine themselves as Eren Yeager or Flock. In reality, they would be the first to have their heads smashed during the rumbling. When they see Eren, Flock or Erwin, they say, "That's literally me, bro." But they have never lifted a finger to accomplish anything significant in their lives. They have never devoted themselves to any cause. They simply turn the most charismatic person they see into an unshakable idol in their empty minds. They have fallen into the very trap of the hero-idol archetype that Attack on Titan critics throughout Eren, the warriors, and Helos. The fans I am talking about sometimes think not with their brains but with their cerebellum, or in extreme cases, their spinal cords. Just like Eren. Perhaps maybe this brings them slightly closer to becoming Sigma or Alpha males like Eren Yeager. By this point, you may want to leave these people behind entirely. But a part of you is curious to conduct a surgical examination to figure out which nerves in their spinal cords are misconnected and where the short circuit occurs. These people, instead of making any systematic effort to think about what is good and what is evil, simply declare the most charismatic and confident figure on their screens to be the hero. Think about the fact that people accept some people as righteous ones without questioning no matter what they do, just because they watch those people suffering greatly for 3 seasons. Those shows how greatly the media's ability to manipulate people can be. How people mostly act according to their emotions rather than their logic. At this point, we came to another segment of the fandom that is a little bit more smart, but equally dangerous. This is a group has not fully embraced the fascist Yeagerist mentality, yet still tries to justify Eren's actions. They say Eren did terrible things, but he wasn't a terrible person. At this moment, I question how such a thing could be possible. These people sometimes claim there is no good or evil in this show. It's just about understanding the sides. Everyone has their own story and their own reasons for what they do. I ask you, why should we try to understand people, their stories, their sides, or their reasons if we are not going to reach deep conclusions about what is good and what is evil? What meaning could such understanding possibly have otherwise? How can we at this point choose to stop thinking about what is good and what is evil? How can we say it doesn't matter who did good or bad things? Nothing matters other than good and evil. Nothing. I repeat, nothing. These people, in an effort not to call Eren bad, go so far as to reject the very concepts of good and evil. This is cognitive failure. The perspective of he wasn't a bad person but he did bad things, or everyone has a story, we shouldn't label them as bad, stems from a deeply ingrained problem that poisons people's mind. This problem lies in a fundamental misunderstanding of what it means for someone to deserve good or bad things to happen to them. And this misunderstanding is related to many people believe that labeling someone as good or bad and consequently punishing or rewarding them only makes sense in the context of free will. But actually, generally, free will is entirely unrelated. Even if it is an undeniable truth that anyone in Eren's position would have done the same, or that Eren had no free will, we should still be able to say Eren was a very bad person, and acting according to that phrase. Downplaying the magnitude of something as catastrophic as the rumbling is an alarming indicator for society. As long as that much people defending Eren for whatever reason, another Eren can come along tomorrow and crush more heads. This fact has nothing to do with whether Eren was free or whether he also suffered greatly. Imagine that Eren was entirely bound by fate, that free will doesn't exist. Plus he also endured unspeakable hardships. Even then, if we can't say Eren was a bad person, we risk enabling future atrocities. Doing ethics is not about whether free will exists. It is about doing what is good. Do not matter if we are free or not. Good is good, bad is bad. Don't say Eren had no other choice, or he became this bad because he suffered greatly. This statement means nothing. Do you know why we should judge people by what they do, not generally require free will in a way that you think? Because, and this might surprise you, we shouldn't punish people simply to make them pay or to hurt them in the first place. Punishing bad people, labeling them or their doings as bad shouldn't stem from hatred or the idea that they deserve suffering according to free will. We label people as bad or evil, and punishing them should stem from these are good to do so. Punishment serves multiple purposes. For example, it acts as a deterrent, provides solace to victims, reminds society of what is good and what is bad, removes dangerous individuals from society, and potentially rehabilitates them. These should be the reasons that justify punishment, not the idea that the person being punished deserves it because of free will. Deserving is a dangerous word in many ways. The word deserving is about cycle of hatred and Yeagerist fascist fandom's mentality. The word deserving is about anger and hate. But to call someone bad or evil and punish them shouldn't be about hate and anger. It should be about greater goods that can result. The concept of deserving punishment is a fabricated idea. Deserving shouldn't be the cause of punishment, but the expression of the conclusion. The conclusion that this punishment needs to be applied. Because deserving is not a trait that the guilty person carry on him or her. The word deserving should express a necessity. And because many don't understand these, they approach every situation by asking who deserved what, who deserved this. This way of thinking perpetuates cycle of hatred. The belief that punishment or ethical wrongdoing must be tied to free will or someone being inherently evil is part of what creates this cycle. even if the concept of free will look like a good idea at first. You think that in order to punish someone, they must have free will. Otherwise, they are not guilty. It's obvious why you think like that. Because when you punish someone, you do so out of hatred, let them suffer, instead of doing so because it is beneficial. This is why you are searching for free will. Because you want to create pain. But you also think that if someone doesn't have free will, they don't deserve to suffer. You want the person you punish to have free will so that they deserve to suffer. However, the act of punishment should not exist with the purpose of causing pain in the first place. Punishment should exist because of its indirect benefits we talked about. Causing suffering is inherently bad. No matter the person we are making suffer while punishing has free will or not. No matter how bad the person is, how evil he or she is, suffering itself is always bad. Because of that, punishment should not be done because someone deserves it. Punishment is only justified when the suffering it causes is outweighed by greater goods. And most of the benefits of punishment are entirely independent of whether the punished person had free will or was pushed into their actions by external circumstances. Flawed perspective I criticize is especially dominant in many religions. Let me ask you, after all the evil in the world has been committed, what purpose does punishment serve in the afterlife? It cannot serve the benefit of removing the person from society, as the rest of the society is already in heaven where no evil can be committed anyway. Or it cannot serve to stop the person from committing more evil, as the end of the world has already come and evil can no longer be done. It cannot rehabilitate them, as they cannot do evil anyway. You may think that God might use hell as a way of comfort victims, deter others, or remind people of what is good and bad in the world. But couldn't God achieve these benefits by simply convincing everyone that evildoers have been punished, or will be punished, even if they will not or they haven't? God is omnipotent after all, and if He do that, He can comfort victims, deter other people in the world from evil, and remind people in the world what is good and evil. Plus, He secretly will not create any more suffering in the afterlife, but never let people realize that, both while they are in the world and while they are in the afterlife. Who knows, maybe that is the actual case. When you look at it, there can't be any purpose of hell. Logic behind hell relies on the idea that punishment is justified because people choose evil of their own free will. In other words, they choose this, so let them suffer. People often say hell is justified because some people are truly evil. But no matter how evil someone is, punishment that only serves to create more suffering is inherently bad. The concept of hell, especially the idea that non-believers will remain in hell forever, reflects the tribalistic mentality in humans. Believers argue that the eternal suffering of non-believers is a reasonable punishment given by God. At the same time, regarding God, the worship of power situation that we see in the fanbase surrounding Eren is also present. After all, charisma means power. Anyway, punishment is not about saying let them suffer, they deserved it. Punishment is about serving a greater purpose, because pain itself is bad, no matter what. Ethics should not be done as a slave to emotions like hatred, anger, or love. Ethics must be guided by reasons and necessity. People stuck in the cycles of hatred believe the other side is bad, so they deserve this. This mentality has led to endless suffering throughout history. Similar to that, but opposite at the same time, Yeagerist maintained 2000 years of Titan oppression simply because she fell in love with a man. But in contrast to both those who hate and those who love, it was Mikasa who chose reason over emotion and the 2000 years of oppression. Despite all her feelings, Mikasa smiled at Eren, severed his head, kissed him, and buried him to the ground. Mikasa does not perform ethics based on her emotions. Neither hatred nor love dedicates her justice. Unlike you, she accepts her feelings, wears the scarf that symbolizes her love for Eren with pride, and yet she kills him.